All right, guys, let's see what this Coyote swap Foxbody can do. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am here with my good friend Nick, and today we're talking about this 1988 Coyote swapped Foxbody Mustang. And guys, if Nick looks a little familiar, that's because he actually was in a video when we did the Tramp, right?
Yep, the Tramp.
And Nick is also co-owner of Streetcar Shenanigans in Antioch, Illinois, and the builder. So you're not the owner, but you're the builder of this car.
Nope.
And I really thought that it would be great to have you here today because you know absolutely everything about this car, built it from the ground up, correct?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So
a lot of input from Eric, who owns it. So some of the builds, this is like one of our flagship builds,
okay.
And some of our flagship builds have very little owner input, and some of them have a lot. This one had a lot more, so it was a real good collaboration between the owner and ourselves on it. When we initially wanted to do this, the idea was to do like a Maximum Motorsports suspension and a Whipple Coyote. That was kind of the premise.
Okay.
And then it kind of snowballed with finalizing some details, and then we started kind of leaning towards more like a road race handling inspired car, and there's no need for 700-800 wheel horsepower in that application.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, why don't we do a real badass Coyote with a Cobra jet and a bunch of RPM and a bunch of gear ratio, and that just sounded like a killer combination, and it turned into like what Eric would say is it's his go-kart. I mean, that's what it turned into. That's what it drives like, that's what it sounds like, and I relate it to driving a sport bike, and it's one of the most fun cars that you could drive with this kind of horsepower level for sure.
Okay, well, let's, I guess, dive right in and, you know, get to the meat and potatoes right here and talk about this Coyote motor. So
let's just focus on this awesome custom intake manifold from Streetcar Shenanigans.
This is 100% custom built by you guys, correct?
Yeah, the intake, yeah. Yep, and this is a mechanical Cobra jet, single monoblade throttle body, and a Cobra jet manifold. So, I mean, it's all the air. All the air. And then we wanted to kind of split the air intake for something different, because there's a big void here on the Coyote swaps. All you see is radiator hoses. So this brought some symmetry to the engine bay. So it's kind of one of our favorite pieces. And you can only do it with Holley EFI. You can't do it with a control pack because there's no MAF sensor.
Gotcha.
So since there's no MAF sensor, we're able to kind of get the air from wherever we want.
Okay. Okay. So I'm assuming MAP, right then, because the Holley runs on MAP. Okay.
Yep,
Awesome.
So it's MAP. The engine details are pretty standard. It doesn't have any extremely exotic components aside from the RGR top end, which is his custom ported heads, his custom ground camshafts, RGR lockouts, and then the cam locations, which are fixed. There's no more VVT on this engine, are really installed to get a ton of RPM and a ton of horsepower. Like this thing makes like no torque, but it makes an ass ton of horsepower.
Okay, and that's the reason for the lockouts, right? Is to
fix them, yeah, to make them fixed and really handle higher RPM capabilities.
Because you're not concerned about gas mileage or the variable cam
or even
timing.
low torque. You know, the VVT really helps a small displacement engine create a lot of peak pressure down low, which will increase the torque, and then they will retard the camshafts to make horsepower. Where we just want it all retarded, and then all the torque that we need comes by mechanical gear ratio increase.
Gotcha.
So that's what we did with this, and it worked out awesome. It's got a couple, power by the hour, a lot of brackets, standard Foxbody swap stuff. Some of the stuff I didn't really like how it looked, like this bracket combination, like we had to cut this and make it look nice, because some of the stuff doesn't look like it fits custom. So some of those modifications, the Hydro Boost setup turned out nice. Standard radiator, it's a Foxbody radiator. It's Mustang hoses, so that's kind of nice. It's like 2011 stuff. That all works out. Custom catch can, custom AC. Make sure we painted everything, so it's all kind of hidden.
What I really like, actually, what you just talked about, is the fact that the car actually has power brakes. It's got air conditioning, so it's got all the luxuries, but it's also kind of a nice street ripper,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And you know, some of the stuff you can't see is like this has a tubular front bumper support. It has a tubular radiator support. So the front of this is kind of real race car-esque because, you know, it's radiator, AC condenser. It has a big oil cooler. So it does, you know, have a little bit more function in the front end. That's all fabricated, you know, as far as like the fog light mounts and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's got Maximum Motorsports full catalog. So if we move down to the suspension.
Yeah, let's talk about suspension and brakes here.
So, you know, caster camber plates. It's got Bilstein shocks with the Maximum Motorsports coilover conversions. And that, you know, we could have leaned towards adjustable. We wanted to start here. It was cost favorable to just put a good set of Bilsteins on it. In the future, if we wanted to change anything, we'd probably switch to an adjustable shock. Okay. But as of right now, we kind of got lucky. It rides really nice. We got the spring rate styled in. It drives good and handles good. Yeah,
it sits really nice too.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a few custom things like these are rolled back a little bit, and then the rears are completely cut out.
Oh, really?
Like a new car. You know, so they're cut back to only a 1/4 inch thick. They're not necessarily rolled. So that helps us let it keep it low. It still has a 285 rear tire on it.
Okay, 285.
Yeah, 285 in the back. I think it's got 275s in the front. It's close to a square setup, but still with a little bit of stagger to it.
Okay.
It's got Maximum Motorsports K member. This is an 88, so it originally doesn't have the fender clearance for that setup. So the fenders have been cut, and then this is just like a 91 to 93 panel.
Wow. Okay. So a little bit of fabrication there.
Yep.
What
Obviously,
about
everything's smooth?
Yes.
You know, no antenna, no badges.
No badges.
No nothing. No wiper cowl. The wiper cowl is
gone.
Yeah. There's no wiper there anymore at all. So it makes it super sleek.
But what do you do when it rains?
80.
80 miles an hour?
Yeah, you do 80. It starts to come wick off pretty good around 80.
I bet. All right, so what about the brakes here? These are some big boys.
Yeah, so it's a 14-inch Willwood setup on the front. We ended up doing custom powder coating on them. So the biggest thing from Eric was the color of the car needed to be custom. So this is Grigio Telesto, which is most commonly on Lamborghinis. I've seen a few Porsches done in it, and it's not a Nardo gray.
Right, I think that's what everybody thinks it is, right? Because that's the name everybody knows.
Yes,
Nardo gray,
right. It's not. It's darker. It's got blue, like a blue hue to it. It's got metallic blue flake in it. I mean, it's really. I mean, I guess I could call it like a high-end Nardo gray because it is kind of in that family that everybody loves, this slate style color.
Sure.
But it's truly unique. I mean, you don't see it often. And we have a Lamborghini Aventador that was the model of this, and it was very similar to this. Like, basically body matched wheels, orange accent colors, and then Grigio Telesto. Okay. So that was kind of like the scheme of the palette. So going into the build, you guys kind of knew what you were shooting for as far as the final outcome, the final look. Yeah. Color, scheme, brakes, and all that. Okay. Yeah. And then the rear end is it's Maximum Motorsports also. So it's got a torque arm on it. It's got their road race sway bar on it. Bilsteins once again. We did modify everything so it has 31 spline axles with an Eaton True Track. It has 9-inch ends and 9-inch axles. So it's, you know, nothing really moves back there. You know, everything, there's no C-clips, so you don't get any kind of weird axle movement whatsoever. And it's all powder coated and you know, welded axle tubes and stuff like that. So it looks as nice underneath as it does up on the top too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And most cars I would say that we do, they all look better underneath. This one just happens to look nice on top too. Okay. So I guess this car is actually the name of this car is Lochness, right? And the Sea Monster. The Sea Monster. So let's let everybody know I guess the story behind that, because I think it's important. You know, people name their cars a lot, and there's usually meaning. There's, you know, sometimes people just have a silly name, but you know, I've met quite a few people that have someone in their life or something that inspired them. This one has a different story about why it's called Lochness, right? Yeah, it is. It's kind of different because we knew the car was going to be gray, so that kind of plays into it a little bit. But when we decided to go Coyote, and then we were getting away from like the Whipple, just throwing a supercharger on a stock Coyote, and instead going like built Coyote, We just needed a core, so we needed to find an engine, and the engine that we found was out of a submerged F-150. Had a bent rod, so it's like we created this monster
from the sea.
From the sea, yeah. So that's what it came in. It turned out to be a really unique name.
Yeah. And
you know, now it's his license plate, which as soon as he ordered the license plate, like we joked and we called it Lochness, and then he got the plate, didn't tell us that that's what he ordered, and it officially became the name.
It was set in stone.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's Lochness.
Okay. All right. So I can't see under the car, but I'll definitely
we'll get you some pictures.
Some pictures. But let's talk about the exhaust, because this isn't like some, you know, standard X pipe or actually nothing about the exhaust is standard, right? This is all full custom exhaust.
Yep. Modified headers, but they are ARH Longtubes.
Okay.
For a Foxbody and this K member, which they fit really good.
Okay.
This has a QuickTime bell housing. So you have a little bit of massaging to do to get the header primaries around the bell housing on the passenger side.
Okay.
Not really a big deal. But then we switched it to V-band flanges instead of the ball flange like a stock Mustang would use. And then from there back is all custom. Nobody really makes a 3-inch exhaust system that works with a torque arm car.
Right.
There's just not room for it. So
it's all SSP custom though, right?
All
you guys
SSP fab,
all built by you guys.
Yeah,
okay.
This is one of our early fabrication projects, which a lot of it turned out really nice. I'm still proud to stand behind it today.
Yeah.
So definitely no hack work on it, but you know, subframe connectors are TIG welded on. It's all 304 stainless exhaust with our favorite Borla Pro XS mufflers, which on this car sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then we went to a 3.5-inch tip just to set it off.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
Little more from the standard 3-inch.
Yeah, I love the Cobra style rear bumper because you can still have the tailpipes out the back.
Yeah,
you know,
which is exactly why we did it.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and it absolutely sounds great too. We'll hear that a little bit later.
And then with like Eric originally wanted, so we didn't have much pushback. You know, pretty much everything he came up with we were on game for, or I pushed him into making it a little bit more extreme.
Sure.
Hence the built Coyote custom cams. You know,
Okay.
it's like that. Once we went that way, but like he was thinking about doing a Cobra spoiler as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought that was too common.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like once you do the Cobra bumper, everybody does the Cobra spoiler.
Yep. No.
So I wanted to keep it a little bit more. We really just wanted the bumper, and then we went with the Maker's Mark front splitter to kind of give the front a lot more depth.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think
in the Cobra insert.
I think it came out really good. Yeah, because once you put a Cobra rear wing and bumper next as you're putting Cobra badges on it.
Yeah. And I didn't want that. I didn't want people to think that it was a Cobra or a Cobra or anything like that. I mean, we took what we think is the best Cobra parts, which is the bumper and the grill insert.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's it. And then everything else just stayed.
Okay. Now, you want to give any credit? You guys obviously don't paint.
No.
Who did the paintwork on this car?
So PAB, which is, they're up in Kenosha. They did the paintwork on this, and they've also done some other cars for us. We use them pretty much exclusively for body work, and they did a nice job on it. I mean, it's really good.
Let's talk about, we talked about the engine and actually the suspension and brakes and stuff like that, and even the exhaust, but we kind of skipped the trans here. Let's talk about that part of it.
Yeah, so what might be interesting on behalf of anybody who's into Fox bodies is nobody really uses a 456 rear gear. A lot of guys who drag race almost exclusively might use it, or underpowered cars use it, but you wouldn't think that a 500 or this car ended up making 530, just under 530 horsepower at the tire, naturally aspirated.
Okay.
So it's getting at or just above 600 horsepower at the flywheel, which is a 2-to-1 horsepower ratio for cubic inch.
Is E85, I assume?
Yeah, this is on E85, which is super impressive. A 2-to-1 horsepower to cubic inches. I mean, you're up there with the best of them. So we're really happy about that. But in order to utilize it, you have to spin at a lot of RPM. Makes peak power at 8,300. It makes peak torque at like 6,200. So you really got to get the RPM up. So in order to fool the lack of torque we have in the engine, we went with a 456 rear gear to try to trebuchet you into the RPM. And then once you're up there, it stays up there, and it's great. You guys will see in the video. The bad part about a 456 gear is obvious. If you put this thing in 5th gear and you're driving it around, I mean, 60 miles an hour is like 2,800 RPM. So when we had to come to a transmission selection, we ended up going with the T56 Magnum, which that was for sure going to happen due to the high RPM shifting capability we needed. But we did it with a custom gear set. So 5th and 6th is actually out of like an F-body style Magnum. So it's got deeper overdrives.
Okay.
So instead of having a 63 6 gear, it's got a 50.
Okay.
So even though it's got a 456 rear gear, you still go 80 at like 2200 in this thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it allows you to have the best of both worlds.
Sure, sure. And again,
so that was kind of a little bit of a trick.
It wasn't, this car wasn't built for getting 30 miles per gallon, but why not, you know, make it more comfortable to cruise, especially on the highway.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's nice that you can stream it and then also, you know, go on the highway. And I mean, on E85 it's terrible on fuel, so
sure, any car,
anything you could do to increase that is
gotcha
worth the money, in my opinion.
Okay. Why don't we take a look inside here real quick? I'm kind of curious to see what
yeah, the inside's pretty bare bones. I think a little bit more of a custom twist on the interior is in the cards for it in the future.
Okay.
You know, Corbo racing seats, we got the matching orange harness bar, LMR's cup holder. The only thing that's kind of unique about the interior of this car is that we kind of took the two-tone that is factory, the titanium over black, and kind of stretched it out. So it's got black carpet instead of titanium carpet. It's got black headliner instead of titanium headliner. And that kind of adds a little bit more contrast to an otherwise factory interior. And then it's got the, I actually really like this. We'll show you in the trunk.
Okay.
But I really like the, I forget who makes that rear seat delete like that. But you can get them on LMR also. But it fits good. It's got some storage compartments in it. Everybody comments on it that it's nice.
Yeah.
So that rear seat delete really turned out nice.
And I don't know many people, unless they have kids, I don't know many people who put anybody in the back anyway. Yeah. So the rear seat delete actually is a great idea, especially for a car like this.
I feel like even when they put the kids in the back seat, it's you know, well, we'll leave that out. It's only so they can keep the car. Right. Like, they make take them, yeah.
Yeah, they make it work.
So now you're gonna see one of the only things that I probably would do differently now, having to have done your car, Tom.
Oh yeah, we'll show them that later.
Yeah, that'll come at another time. But is like this is the battery obviously is relocated to the trunk, and this is just an Optima full weight. Everything's out in the open. I think that over the winter I would be interested in going to a small lightweight battery and hiding it in the storage compartment here.
Wow.
So clean up the back a little bit more and take 40 pounds out of the back, you know.
That's a pretty neat little trick you just did there.
What with the delete?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's cool. And there's one up there too. So I think he keeps like all of his car care products up in that one.
Well, that gives me some ideas.
Yeah, this one doesn't have anything in it, but
sure. But a little battery could go in there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it. A lot of compliments on that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the brand. I'm sure you could post it, but
yeah, super clean though. I like actually, you're right, the delete kind of looks like it's meant to be there, and it's just really clean the way that it was done.
I think the only thing that this car lacked when we bought it as a donor, which is a story in and of itself, is the interior plastics are not in prime condition. So I'm sure once the last little bits are done with this thing, it'll always just kind of be keeping an eye out for, you know, clean gray sail panels and a new one of the, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then as you can kind of acquire those things, you can kind of get the interior to be pretty minty. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really a beautiful car. And again, my goal was really just to kind of show the quality of work that you guys can do. You know, you don't just take cars and you know, build up some motors and throw them down the strip. You can actually take a car from the beginning to the end and have a completely different, you know, style build, right? Like this one, like you said, was not built to go down the track. It can, but it's really not meant for that. It's actually just meant to be a road car, you know, with it's
an automotive enjoyment, you know? That's really what it is.
Exactly.
You know, there's no aspect of this car when you drive it, which is going to be hard to portray on camera. Hopefully maybe when you drive it we can get your reaction of driving it, but you can't portray in video how fun this car is to drive. You know, whether you're driving illicitly and bobbing and weaving in traffic, or, you know, you have an open road and you're able to stand on it, or you're just cruising. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, I told you the dangers of me driving this car.
Right.
Is that, you know,
I've start leaning towards this direction.
Exactly. I've always had it in the back of my mind, and you know, maybe not this direction. You know, I kind of prefer the old style. Either centrifugal or some sort of power adder. I like that aspect of it, but who knows? Yeah. You know, maybe driving this car would change my mind. But I've never driven a Coyote motor anyway. Right. Coyote motor car. So this will be a unique experience.
Yeah, and I will preface that experience for you with saying that this is a little bit different than a standard Coyote, obviously. You know, with the lockouts and how the car's set up, this is going to be a little bit, I would say, a little bit more raw compared to a standard Coyote, but still very smooth, very good, clean power delivery. It's a blast.
Awesome. All right, guys, this is always my favorite part of the video. What do you say we go for a ride? All right, guys, let's see what this Coyote swap Foxbody can do. I heard
That's a trans.
Goddamn. Oh, I thought the Mexican police were coming for us right there. Wow, yeah, this thing, you've said it before, it pulls like a freight train on your car. This thing just, it really pulls at those high RPMs. Wow.
I mean, you wouldn't think it's naturally aspirated.
No, absolutely not. And it, surprising.
And now we're going, I don't know how fast we're going, but we're at 5th. We're doing 51 at 2300. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say we're doing the speed limit right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, we can have a conversation. It's quiet enough, even with the 3-inch exhaust in here.
A little bit of driveline noise because everything's solid mounted, solid control arm, solid torque arm.
Right.
So you're gonna get a little bit of the driveline noise, but that kind of builds characteristic of the car, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels really, suspension is a little tight, but it actually feels comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, these seats too, these Corbo seats are really comfortable as well.
Yeah, I was definitely nervous taking this approach on the suspension because I was nervous it was going to be too stiff.
Okay.
But we were under the understanding that hey, if it's a swing and a miss, that's kind of how this process goes sometimes. Right.
It's just such a different feeling from, the push rod, that can only, like my car.
Let's push this turn pretty hard.
Okay. It just sticks. Wow.
Brakes are great.
The brakes are great too. Yeah, this car, it just sticks. That was pretty cool. Wow.
I mean, everything that you want a car to do, this one does.
If I tried to push my car past like 6,500, I'd probably be picking up the pieces,
Right. And like something that's different on this is like it's got like a Borla transmission shifter on it. So it's got a Tremec standard shifter on the bottom, but it's got like a long handle.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of nice. I mean, you don't feel like you have to take a lot of effort to shift it with the extra length on it.
Right.
I think everybody wants always like the shortest one.
Yeah.
I've gotten past that. It's way more comfortable to drive with a 6-inch or 7-inch long shifter.
So it still has a short throw, but it's got a longer stick at the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now Tick Performance came out with a shorter throw shifter, and I really like it in race applications, but like something like this, it's got really strong centering springs. So it would kind of be a little bit, I would say almost irritating with how often you shift this car considering the gear ratio. I mean,
sure.
What's unique about this car is like you literally cruise it at 2,500 RPM. I mean, you're not driving it at 1,500 RPM, which is like the goal of everybody else.
Yeah.
This thing it really likes to cruise around 21 to 2,400. Can it go lower? Yeah, but everything's kind of happier
when you're a little bit higher. just driving it normal, it still has that. It's got that little pull, and it sounds amazing. Like it really does.
I love the sound of this car. It's one of my favorite sounding cars that we've done. You know, a lot of people don't know that Borla makes like generic mufflers. So when you think Coyote and Borla, you're like, even me. You know, almost every late model Coyote car has Borla attacks, which are the loudest muffler that a Coyote should never have on it. But everybody runs it because they want a loud car. Yeah. Where this is Borla Pro XS and Foxbody orientation, and it still has American muscle sounding, but when you rev it, it's like more exotic. Yeah. A little bit of a switch up on the Brother Tom videos. Getting Brother Tom to drive.
Yeah, Eric was nice enough to offer to let me drive the car, and so let's see what we see. All right, well.
So don't be scared of throttle input and RPM.
Okay. So
feel free to rev it up when you're moving it and when you're ripping it. That's my only input. Now, is this the wildest stick shift car you've driven?
This is actually, yeah.
Yeah, so the you'll really see what some of the big cam, low RPM characteristics in a stick shift car can do. You know, this is going to be like the drivability that we're concerned with on your car is over exemplified in something like this that has no engine vacuum and a lot of camshafts.
Wow, you're right. The clutch actually does have. It's soft.
Yeah,
I was a little nervous when you said it. You know that you would, if you didn't like it. I thought maybe it was a little bit too heavy.
Yeah, no, it's really soft, which is good, but it's really grabby.
Yes.
And then being a twin disc, it's heavier than it needs to be. Sure. But drivability wise, it's just fine. You know, it drives good. It is just a little bit on the aggressive side is all. Am I gonna hit 2 Brother Tom videos this year? Am I gonna be featured in the Brother Tom video?
You're gonna be in the Hall of Fame, actually. And it's still got a nice short throw. Like I'm not uncomfortable.
Well, and I know that we're gonna have another conversation about your car in the future, and you're thinking TKX, but if you're thinking doing a Holly dash, I would really persuade you into doing a stock Cobra T56.
Okay.
Because you could do the electronic pickup speedo into the Holly, and when you have the 5 speeds, like in yours, I've noticed you drive it in 4th gear, it's at 2500, but you put it in 5th gear, it's at 1500. It's like you have no in between. If you had a 5th gear and then the 6th gear, you'd be better off.
What's really cool about this car is like when you're not even trying to sound like a race car, you still sound like a race car. Oh my god, the exhaust is so badass. Wow. And it's very nimble.
Oh yes, it's very nimble. This has, we didn't talk about it, but it has all 0304 Cobra components.
Okay.
So the Hydro Boost, the rack, I guess that's it really, that's what matters.
And actually this is the first Hydro Boost steering car. Not like I would notice a difference, but
yeah, I mean, the difference that I've noticed with this car is that, I don't know if it needs a pump, but ever since we put the 888s on it, it does not like to steer without moving. Okay. And I'm not really sure what's the main culprit of that, but a vacuum or standard power steering doesn't seem to do that.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that is because it's Hydro Boost or not, but the brakes are amazing because of the Hydro Boost. Yeah. Regardless of engine vacuum, they never fade. You know, it doesn't matter how hard you stand on it. Since this car has big camshafts, it doesn't make engine vacuum, so a standard vacuum brake booster would kind of run out of assistance if you try to stop this car as hard as you can. Like, I mean, lay on the hooks over here and you'll really see what I mean.
On the brakes?
Yeah, like get up to like 30, 40 and then stop it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it stops.
This is actually a lot easier to drive than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I was a little nervous, like I was telling you, about driving it.
But this is what makes it easy.
Yeah, you can see.
Like, I mean, you're cruising at 2,800.
And you're right, like,
so everything's happy up there.
and you're right too. Like, I did feel that really early aggressive grab on that one right there, but I think it's a little bit forgiving.
Yeah.
Very, very good job, man. You guys did amazing with this car. I can see why Eric's so happy and why he's going to be coming back to you guys for for another build and another build and another build.
Right.
Such a nice driver. I can see myself cruising in something like this.
Right. I like that it makes the same horsepower as your car, but in a totally different fashion. You know, just so different. Yeah, the rev downshift is so good in this car. All right, Tom, well, what do you think about Eric's Foxbody?
Honestly, it is a lot easier to drive than I thought it was going to be, and I didn't think that it could be like a really cool cruiser, you know, when we were looking at it and talking about the way it was built and stuff. But you know, that's how I drive. I drive like a little cruiser, you know, go get ice cream car that just sounds kind of cool and you can rip it every once in a while. And this is actually one of those cars. But it's totally different. Just like you were saying, how, you know, it's about the same horsepower as my car, but it's a completely different style driver car, right? I love it. I really, that was my first time driving a Coyote, anything, right? First time driving the T56, anything. And I love it. I really do. You guys did a great job. Congrats to Eric for having, you know, built such a great car. And it really kind of opened my eyes up to the whole Coyote thing too. The car just sounds badass. Even when you drive it the way I drive it, it still sounds badass.
Well, Eric could probably hear our whole test drive. It probably sounds badass from a mile away too.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap things up here. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Actually, this was one of the funnest videos that I've done because I got to drive this badass car. If you guys have any questions or comments about the car, post them down below. Nick and I will do our best to answer them for you. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And you know, we're gonna do it again next time.